The transcendental qualities are conducive to liberation, whereas the demonic qualities make for bondage. Do not worry, O son of Pandu, for you are born with the divine qualities. Purport. Lord Krishna encouraged Arjuna by telling him that he was not born with demoniac qualities. His involvement in the fight was not demoniac because he was considering the pros and cons. He was considering whether respectable persons such as Bhishma and Drona should be killed or not. So he was not acting under the influence of anger, false prestige, or harshness. Therefore, he was not of the quality of the demons. For a Kshatriya, a military man, shooting arrows at the enemy is considered transcendental, and refraining from such a duty is demoniac. Therefore, there was no cause for Arjuna to lament. Anyone who performs the regulative principles of the different orders of life is transcendentally situated. Om Jnana-timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Tathati Shapadantikam Vande Han Shri Guru Shri Jata Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamstra Shri Rupam Shagrashatam Shahagana Raganatam Tam Stam Sadivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Shahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Deen Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Puri Vancha Kolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Daivi Sampad Vimokshaya Nimbandhaya Suri Mata Mamshucha Sampadam Daivim Abhijato Si Panda. In this chapter, Lord Krishna describes people who have godly qualities and demonic qualities. Daivi Sampad, divine qualities, and Asuri Sampad, demonic. The divine qualities are described in the beginning of the chapter. Avayam Sattva Samshuddhi Jnana Yoga Vyavastiti Dhanam Dhamascha Yagyascha Svadhyaya Taparjana. All good qualities. Fearlessness, purification of one's existence, knowledge, being situated in transcendental knowledge, generosity, charity, self-control, sacrifice, Vedic study, austerity, straightforwardness, nonviolence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, detachment, peacefulness, aversion to fault finding, and so on. Teja, well, before we get there, daya means compassion. Daya bhuteshu, compassion to all living beings. Aloluptvam, freedom from greed, right? Aloluptvam, mardavam, gentleness, fear, achapalam, mardavam. Gentleness, free, modesty, achapalam, determination, not being chapal. Chapal means fickle. So these are all divine qualities, these and more. Then on the other side, dambho, darpo, abhiman, to be proud, arrogant, full of false prestige. Dambho, darpo, abhimanascha, angry, krodha, parusham, proud of one's own capability. Is that parusham? How does Prabhupada class parusham? Harshness, ignorance. These are all demonic qualities. So we see that in this world, there are people who are like that. There are people who are, they'll just meanness is a way of life for them. Outlaws. Prabhupada, Hare Krishna, lost this sometimes as law-abiding and outlaws. The outlaws, that's what they are. They're greedy. They'll do anything to take your money or steal your property, sometimes just damage it for spite. Uncontrolled, vicious. They're people who are just, that's their nature. And others who are kind, gentle, simple, truthful, or law-abiding. Ultimately, there are the laws of nature or the laws of God, and there are those who follow them, and there are those who are in rebellion against them. So those who are rebellious against the laws of nature, the laws of God, are called the outlaws or demonic, asuras. And the law-abiding are the devas. In this age, the number of asuras increases. But these two are found everywhere. Dvau bhuta sarga lokesmin, daiva asura evaja. Krishna says in the next verse. That everywhere you go, you'll find these two natures. So here, the Daivi Sampat Vimokshaya, the divine qualities lead to freedom from material entanglement. They lead to freedom from birth and death. Because one is seeking the divine path in relation to the absolute truth or in relationship to the Supreme Lord, or one is abiding by the divine path. So gradually one attains liberation. And nibhantaya surimata. And the demonic qualities lead to greater entanglement. You break the law, you get imprisoned, you get beaten, you get involved in underworld recriminations and all that sort of terrible life. The life of bondage, the life of entanglement, the life of birth and death. And Krishna says these are two pathways, one leading freedom, the other leading to bondage. And what's interesting to me is abhijat. People are born with these qualities. I used to puzzle over that. Are you saying that there are two kinds of, just people are helplessly born in one category or another, and there's nothing they can do about it, and it's just some sort of trick of fate? Some people are thrown in this bucket, and some people are thrown in that bucket. Sort of an arbitrary world, and then if you're in the wrong bucket, then you're doomed. But the Acharyas comment that one is born in one of one nature or the other according to one's previous activities. It's not accidental, it's not arbitrary, it's not some sort of cosmic injustice. It's according to our past. Really, would you expect that one of these cruel and despotic, genocidal dictators would be born in his next life as a saintly person? You'd expect him to follow on from where he left off. Nor would you expect that a saintly person in the next life would take birth as a mass murderer or one of those sort of people. So it's just continuation. As we continue in this life, from our present activities to our later activities, after death, one continues in the next lifetime, according to the qualities one has picked up or cultivated in this life. One continues. What else would we expect? Imagine also the injustice of it, that someone is totally atheistic, against God. He's railing at the idea of any kind of divinity, and the next life he's born in a good Catholic family and goes to church every goes to mass and all that, and brought up in pious. No, it doesn't fit. It's like, why did you do this to me? What did I do to deserve this? Get me out of here. Right? You would expect that the person who's cultivated meanness and rebellion against any kind of social order would take his next life and pick up where he left off. Or a person cultivating divinity would continue in the divine direction. Now, it's not absolute that if you're of this nature, you have to be born in this kind of family or that kind of family, because sometimes we find that there's, the person who doesn't fit. Prahlad Maharaj was born in a demonic family, but he was supremely devoted. And there may be those who were born in devoted families, like the family of Maharaj Anga, and he got venal. The demonic King Vena is his son. So it's not absolute. If you're of this nature, you're born in that family, but you pick up your nature from where you left off. Therefore, we even see in other kinds of affairs that someone is born in a family of people who know nothing about music, but he becomes a precocious musician. Someone's born in a family where they don't know anything about physics, and he becomes a great physicist. So it's not exactly according to the family, but we pick up qualities. There was I was just mentioning him to someone that in the 60s and thereabouts, there was a great American chess champion, Bobby Fischer, who was like 14 or something like that. Just chess, 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 and chess. He just did lousy in his studies. He wasn't interested in this. He was terrible in social affairs. Total loser in every department except chess, in which he was totally brilliant. He learned whatever kind of Russian you needed to be able to read Russian chess books. You couldn't speak Russian or, talk about the weather or anything, but he could read chess books in Russian because he needed to do that. So it's just living chess. So that sort of interest comes from a previous cultivation. That sort of capability. One is continuing a certain kind of attraction. Or we see that people are attracted to spiritual life. In the 6th chapter, Krishna says that a person who takes up the divine path but somehow becomes distracted, yoga brashta, distracted from the path of spiritual progress, takes his next birth in a fortunate family. Shuchinam Shimitam Gehe Yoga Brashta Vijayate. Either in an intellectual, Brahminical family, or in a wealthy family, prosperous family. Atava Yoginam Eva Kule Bhakti Devata. Or in a family of transcendentalists. That sort of rare opportunity. And then, in the next birth, Krishna says, find it faster here. Prapya Punyakratam Lokam. Let's see. Tatratam Buddhisam Yogam Labate Parvadevika. He automatically picks up his progress from his previous life. Yatate Chatrato Bhuya Sangsito Kurunanda. So that he gradually makes progress to perfection. Purvabhya Sena Tainaiva Priyate Yavasho Pisaha. Avasho means helplessly or automatically. I don't know why I'm just attracted to this spiritual life, or I don't know why I feel like I don't fit in this material world. I don't belong to this world somehow. I don't feel right here. I'm always looking for something. Why does that happen? Helplessly. One may wish that he could succeed materially, that he had the drive and the ambition, but something within him says, you don't want this. This is all useless. This is not going to make you happy. You have to look within, or you have to look above. Why does that happen to him? These ideas are all over the place. They're in all the scriptures of the world. Why is it that some small number of people become attracted that way? Automatically. Or you could say helplessly, as if there's something forcing them to aspire for that, to search for that higher reality. Krishna said it's because of their previous advancement. They pick up from where they left off. If someone advanced, say, 80% of the way, he picks up in the next life, 81%. Makes further progress. Wherever one left off. Materially, it doesn't work that way. If I was a big business magnate in this life, I take my next life, I may be penniless. But spiritually, whatever progress, Krishna says, whatever progress one makes is not lost. What is that?
It's not nasho.
Not neha vikrama nasho si pratyavayo nividite. It's never lost. It's never destroyed. Whatever progress we make carries over. It's like bank balance that you can carry into your next life. The dollars and cents can't be taken with us, but our spiritual progress continues. So in this way, Krishna says here that there are two kinds of people: those who are of the divine nature, those who are seeking divinity or higher values, and those who are mean, vicious, angry, arrogant, proud. And that's a powerful force in the world today. We want to crush our competitors. We want to destroy the opposition. We want to pulverize a country, beat it into submission, because we want more, and they have it. As this chapter goes on, Krishna will describe the demonic mentality vividly, how those of this grossest, materialistic nature will do anything for their own ambitions, to gratify their own desires. There are such people. I used to think that this chapter was sort of stereotypical, almost cartoonish. They're the good guys and the bad guys. But the longer I live and the more I see what goes on, the more I'm convinced that actually this is a fact. You find wonderful people, saintly people by their very nature, and you find people who are so vicious that they do anything, walk on anyone, do anything to anyone to satisfy their own lust, their own greed, their own drive for power. They'll do it individually, they'll form gangs and groups and syndicates and governments, whatever, for their own self-aggrandizement. So these two natures are described in this chapter. And Mahashucha Sampadam Daivim, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, don't worry. Because Arjuna might have been thinking, here I'm getting ready to kill my teacher, I'm getting ready to kill my grandfather, I'm getting ready to kill my cousins and my friends to get a kingdom. What kind of demonic person am I? But Krishna says, Mahashucha, don't worry. You're not doing this out of pride, arrogance, false prestige. It's your duty. Srila Prabhupada talks about the regulative principles of the different orders of life. Orders of life is perhaps an unfamiliar locution outside of our group. That there are different occupational orders or different occupations that people have. Someone's a priest and someone's a policeman. You don't expect a policeman to be nonviolent. You call 911 and the guys show up with their body armor and submachine guns or whatever, anti-terrorist gear, and then they look and say, well, I don't know, it looks dangerous here. I have a wife, I have kids. I want to go home. I'm not meant for fighting. I was pushed into this job. I don't really like it. That's not what you expect. You expect him to be ready to do whatever it is to defend the nation or defend the people, defend you. You don't want a shrinking violet at a crime scene. And when you call a priest, you don't expect a guy who's ready to kick butt. You don't expect him to arrive with his fists clenched and ready to punch out anybody who's in his way. You expect a priest to be gentle and kind and compassionate and tolerant and forgiving and so on. But you don't expect that from a policeman. There, that's all right. We know you raped this girl, but you didn't really mean it, did you? So there are different duties. What's the duty of the priest is not the duty of the policeman. What's the duty of the policeman isn't the duty of the priest. And farmers, they have a different duty. They're neither theologians nor enforcers of the law. They're meant for creating prosperity, for bringing forth productivity from the land, protecting the land. That's actually the duty of the farmers. Therefore, Prabhupada talks about the regulative principles. That's actually the duty of a farmer, not to suck up as much as he can, inject into the land whatever will increase the yield at any cost. That's not the duty of a farmer. He's meant to cooperate with the land, to protect the land, to protect the animals, to protect the plants, and to bring forth prosperity in cooperation with nature, not in antagonism toward nature, defiance of nature, exploitation of nature. So everyone has different duties. And Krishna says to Arjuna, you're acting according to your duty. You're not acting out of pride, out of arrogance. You're considering, should I be doing this? Should I not be doing this? What is my duty? You do have a tendency to be forgiving, to be kind, but you're putting that aside for the sake of your obligation. So you're not Mashucha Sampadam Daivim. You have the divine qualities. You have the divine qualities. Abhijatosi Pandava. You're born with the divine qualities. And don't worry. And Arjuna's greatest divine quality is that he's Krishna's friend and devotee. In the 4th chapter, Bhaktosi me sakha cheti rahasyam hetahuttam. Arjuna wasn't a priest or a theologian or an ascetic or a monk, but he was a married man, he was a warrior. But Krishna said, you can understand this divine science of Bhagavad-gita for 2 reasons. Bhaktosi me sakha cheti. You're my devotee, and you're my friend. So Arjuna had this sublime relationship with the deity, with the personality of Godhead. And that's the ultimate divine quality. That's the basic principle of all the other divine qualities. Just like to be law-abiding, you should be honest, you should be truthful, but the main thing is you should respect the government, respect the state. Then you're a law, everything else will follow. You'll be honest, you'll follow the street signs, you'll refrain from importing illegal substances into the country. It doesn't have to be outlined. Don't do this, this. If you're loyal to the state, you'll follow. And if you're against the state, whatever it is, you don't care what's against the law. You're going to do it if it feels good, if you can profit from it. You may even be in the government, but if you're of that nature, you'll just exploit. You'll use your position to further your own objectives. So the real litmus test, the real of divinity, is to be a devotee of the divine. Otherwise, one may have some of the qualities of the divine nature, but they'll be superficial. They'll show up at appropriate times for looking good, but when push comes to shove, whatever suits me is what I'll do. There was an American politician who was, his wife said, I knew he decided to run for president when he called me up and told me to get the kids ready for church. You know, a show of piety. A show of honesty, a show of upstandingness, a show of this. But the basic principle is how to satisfy my own, pull off my own schemes in defiance of the law. So the ultimate quality of divinity is to be devoted to the divine. Then one will have, naturally, Krishna is the ultimate divinity. And if we're devoted to Krishna, we'll pick up all the divine qualities. We'll share in the divine qualities. Yes, yasti bhaktir bhagavatya kinchana, sarvaya gunais tatra samasate sura. If one has selfless devotion to the personality of Godhead, all the godly qualities will naturally develop. And harava bhaktasya kato mahantuna. And if one is not devoted to the personality of Godhead, then where are his good qualities? Mano retena satita. He's running on the platform of his own mental concoctions, his own contaminated mind. And therefore, his good qualities, even when they show up, have no solid basis. They're just superficial and fleeting. Prabhupada didn't give this example, but it occurs to me that, someone's gentle, he's soft-spoken, he dresses conservatively, he's intelligent, he's generous, he's very kind to his wife and family, and he's the head of the local mafia. All those good qualities are superficial because he's an outlaw, finally. He's the head of the mob. So even though he may be soft-spoken, even though he may be generous, the ultimate quality is missing, to be law-abiding. So in the similar way, one may have some of these good qualities, but if he's not devoted to the Supreme, those qualities will be superficial. They don't have a place to stand. They're not deeply rooted in his nature. They're just, well, if I speak nicely, I can get something. If I show some kindness, something will come back to me. So in this way, Dvabhuta Sargalokesmin, two natures, divine and demonic, and even the demonic can come to the divine nature. Rarely. But by the power of this transcendental sound, even those who are following the demonic path may be purified. And what to speak of those who are on the path of divinity, on the path of spiritual realization or seeking higher values. So our program is simple: to chant Hare Krishna, to hear this message of transcendental understanding from Bhagavad-gita As It Is, and in this way make progress in the most important purpose of human life, spiritual realization and Krishna consciousness. Maybe we'll stop here and see what questions there might be.
The one back there, Mars.
One back, yes.
Like you were just saying, someone with a demonic quality. What hope is there for that person now?
What hope is there for the person with demonic qualities?
If our next life is contingent on how we behave in this life.
In Bhagavad-gita, toward the end, Krishna says, not much hope. Asurim yonimapanya muta janmani mama prapyaiva kontia tato yantyata mam gatim. Birth after birth, he comes back in demonic life and goes down to the lowest regions, as one would expect. Do you expect the Pol Pot to come back and, just sort of spring back to the good qualities? You expect we wouldn't be satisfied if he were, just got off with a slap on the wrist. We'd say nature was unfair. So Krishna says, very little. Did they get some prasadam?
No.
Good. Thank you. Hare Krishna. So Krishna says, very little chance. They go down and down and down and down. But even for the demonic, this Krishna consciousness process is so nice that their qualities can change. Their qualities can change. Migari is the example of a person who was a hunter, and not just a hunter, but taking pleasure in half killing the animals. He would shoot them and enjoy watching them writhe in pain. It's like sport. If they're suffering, he's enjoying. Imagine that kind of mentality. Not just to kill them, but to enjoy watching them suffer. But by good fortune, he met the great Saint Narad, and Narada said, listen, kill them. No, why? I enjoy this. This is what I learned from my father. He taught me this. No, you're causing them too much pain, and it will come back to you. In your next life, as you've made them suffer, they'll make you suffer. And somehow, by the good association of Narada, the hunter became such a saintly person. He took up the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. He gave up his occupation of hunting animals. He just depended on what Krishna arranged for him. And he became a great saint. So much so that when Narada came back with a friend later, he said, I have a disciple here. We can visit him. So when the hunter disciple saw that Narad Muni was there, then he was running to greet him, but he was running like in hopscotch fashion, jumping this way, that way. And then he came before Narad and offered his respects. Yeah, but what was this hopscotching? No, there were some ants on the path, so I didn't want to step on them. The same person who enjoyed seeing animals suffer was now unwilling even to step on an ant. So this is the power of Krishna consciousness. Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj. So my question is an extension of Ken Prabhu's question. So you mentioned the hunter by good fortune he met a devotee. So is this the only way, or what are the other rare circumstances that you mentioned that one with demoniac?
No, it's only by good fortune.
It's the only way that
Only
one
by
can
good
get.
fortune. By in terms of what he deserves, he's lost. He's lost. But like good fortune can have, well, I don't know if this is a full accounting, but two ways that you can be fortunate. One is somehow in your previous lifetime you did something Krishna conscious. Neha vikramanashtamasti. That's not lost, it comes back. So what is that? Swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahatova. They can save one from the greatest danger. Somehow one performed a little Krishna consciousness and now it comes back. And he, on the strength of that, he escapes from his demonic life. That's one thing. The other thing is what's called causeless mercy. Our one of my godbrothers, Bhavananda Prabhu, was walking with Srila Prabhupada and some devotees. He asked, what is causeless mercy? Prabhupada, what does that mean? So Prabhupada made a gesture as if he had a big bag of money. Pushed the bag of money on me. Take it. That's causeless mercy. You didn't do anything to deserve it, but it's just someone wants to give it to you here. Causeless means not because you deserved it, just because the devotee of his own goodwill wants to benefit you. And that's the nature of devotees. Patitanam pavani. Their job, their happiness in life is to rescue people from the depths of material entanglement. Not to judge. Yeah, this person deserves it. That person doesn't deserve it. This person might deserve it. Let's take it. That's called causeless mercy. By causeless mercy, the hunter met Narad Muni, and some good fortune was there that he met Narad Muni, and he saw Narad Muni. Narad Muni was an effulgent, spiritual person. Even the hunter was impressed. So he was respectful to Narad and offered him, can I give you something? Can I give you some animal skins? No, I don't want it. But he was offering it. So it counted. He was offering respect to Narad. So that counted in his favor. Something else? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
I was thinking, like Prahlad Maharaj, he was born in a demoniac family just to tell a story, right? To prove a point. Like
someplace in the Puranas, there's some history how he got to be in a demonic family. I forgot that
so
story.
there was like a real reason as to why.
Well, it's a kind of a sham reason also, because these things are all staged by the will of the personality of Godhead. So then we say, well, he's not a good example then, because or Jai Vijay or any of the devotees who take the part. But still, even those who are less illustrious than Prahlad Maharaj, or who aren't exemplars of the type, they can also. And the example is, Jagai Madhai, but you could say, well, that was a setup too. But take the whole Krishna consciousness movement. All sorts of people who were up to all sorts of things. This 26nd Avenue, you could fill books and books with the history of what the people who walked in the door had been doing. And yet some of them gave up all of those things and became wonderful devotees of Krishna.
Right now, so then I was gonna say, so you were saying sometimes people are born due to their own karma, but do you think that maybe sometimes, like a musician is born in a family that is like anti-musician, but that's because he has to help his family as well. Like he's also not just helping himself, but also helping his family in a way. Well,
he may not teach them music. He may make a lot of money as a musician, and that helps the family. Or he may become famous, and that helps the family.
In a spiritual way, like in in the Christian Bible, I remember reading like if you're saved, then your family is then saved, or
Yeah,
if
that's there.
if you come from that bad blood, you know, it's you're just born into that like that sickness. So in reverse, is it that sometimes you're born into something to help the others that is around you, and not just helping yourself?
That may be. It happens, certainly. If someone becomes it's said, Chanakya Pandit says, if there's one fragrant tree in the forest, the whole forest becomes fragrant. So if one person in the family becomes a devotee, the whole family becomes glorified. And Chanakya says, if there's a fire in the hollow of one tree, the whole forest can burn down.
Yeah.
So one can disgrace his family also. I remember there was, the old people in the room might remember that there was a madman who became a serial murderer and was known as Son of Sam. And his dog was dictating to him whom to kill. I mean, he was totally mad. And I remember there was a photograph of him, being brought to court. And his mother and father were there, like hiding their faces with newspapers from the press reporters. Now, how disgraceful is it that your son has become a madman and a mass murderer? So one such person in the family becomes a disgrace for the whole family. And one saintly person in the family glorifies the whole family.
Another question. So you're speaking about the position of Arjun, and how what he's doing is indeed transcendental. So I was wondering if this makes sense. Does karma dwell on the intention of the action, the intention behind the action? Like, do I receive karma based on my intention, or what I actually accomplished?
Both.
So the intention could indeed like save someone. Like, oh, I didn't intend on that to happen, but it kind of did. So Krishna may like.
Of course, Krishna is in everyone's heart, so he sees intention. But intention, the laws of karma are very stringent. So intentionality doesn't always get us out of the jam.
Yeah.
Sometimes we intend to do something good, but because we're ignorant, we do something bad or terrible. We intended to save the patient, but instead we killed her. We intended to rescue the person, and instead we broke his spine. I'll give you an example. The soldiers who came into the concentration camps when they were liberated at the end of the Second World War saw these, pitifully emaciated prisoners in places like wherever they were. And out of compassion for them, they threw their G rations at them, their cans of whatever it was, to take my food. But these were prisoners who hadn't eaten for who knows how long properly. And those among them who were doctors were telling them, don't eat it, because you can't handle it. And in fact, some of these prisoners who'd survived the death camps up to the point of liberation took this food and died. So even though the intentions were good, the result was terrible. So that's the effect of ignorance. If the soldiers had a medical background, they would know that I can't do this. This is not kindness. It's actually harm giving. Like
rabbit starvation.
Rabbit starvation?
Yeah.
I'm unfamiliar with it.
In cultural anthropology, I learned that sometimes like people would they would be so hungry that they would hunt a rabbit,
Mhm.
and the body takes more effort to break down that source of protein than you're actually getting. So you're kind of starving yourself.
You're killing yourself.
Yeah. That's interesting. Thank you very much.
Therefore, knowledge is so important. If one knows what to do, I don't know what to do, so I eat the wrong food, or I give the wrong help, or I send the wrong message, or I read the message wrong, or so many things go wrong because of ignorance. And ignorance, it's not that nature says, oh, this child was ignorant, she didn't know it was fire. I won't burn. So even in spite of our good intentions, in spite of our, you can say, innocence, nature retaliates very strongly. So karma works, karma is part of the laws of nature, and it works in that way. Therefore, it's good to have good intentions, and that's perhaps a sign of divine nature, godly nature. We want to do something good. But without knowledge, without proper guidance, our good tendencies won't flower. They won't grow in the proper direction. Therefore, guidance is needed. Those who have knowledge, we're meant to approach so that we can get knowledge and know what to do to make progress in our own life and to help others, truly help others. Okay? Anything else? Am I over time here?
You're doing fine, Maharaj.
I'm doing fine, okay. Should we stop here anyway? Is there any other questions? We can carry on.
Last call for any questions. Don't be shy. Like if you haven't been here before or just once or twice, Maharaj would be happy to answer.
Ding. Okay. Next program.
My